Welcome to another video focused on the trainer skills assessment and the capacity matrix area that we'll be looking at is tool dexterity. And really this is just a grab bag of all the different kinds of ideas and topics that you will want to perhaps explore in more detail if you're not familiar with them. So for example, the some of the ideas that you're going to encounter in tool dexterity really involve you becoming familiar with how to interface and access some of these tools. So for example, what are some of the core tools within the Google Apps for Education suite? So if you're not familiar with the core tools, you can always go to your Google admin console and click on apps. And when you click on apps, you'll notice that you have several boxes here. You have the G Suite tools, which are these tools that are enabled, and they include Calendar, Classroom, Contacts, Drive and Docs, Gmail, and hopefully you have Groups for Business turned on. Keep, Sites, Google Talk, Hangouts, Google+. These are sort of your core apps. These are the key apps that are a part of Google Suite for education. Now, if you go back to your apps, though, there are some additional Google services that you can access. And these would include items like Chrome Management, Chrome Web Store, the Campaign Manager, the double-click search, and Feed Burner. And all of these are just different resources and tools that are available to you. As you might imagine, if you scroll down, you can see Google Photos, which some people see as a pretty important app, Google Voice, and Blogger, if you want to set up blogs, being able to work with some YouTube content, and of course YouTube. So these are things that you can turn on or off for selected organizations, and we really spend a lot more time going into this during the Google Administrator Certification Exam preparation. So I don't want to give all that away, but there's just a lot more information here. But what you're expected to do is really to be able to distinguish between what are your core offerings of Google Apps for Education or Google Suites for Education or Google for Education, whatever is the current term, and between the core apps and then these additional services. Another thing to be aware of is security practices. And in addition to being able to manage your users, you also want to go in and manage your security. And if you've been watching this video series, you've probably seen that we've actually visited the basic settings already. And let's talk a little bit more about password management. One of the best practices that we've heard reported is, being able to set longer passwords that are more difficult to guess and that combine a variety of characters. So there are lots of different passwords that are insecure. Usually they're short. They're words that people use. We've encountered ones like password is one word that's used as a password, or people just add password 123, or maybe they include their birthday or their pet's name, and those are usually fairly short and they're not secure. So that's why we set a minimum length for passwords, but we don't want to go too crazy. We have a maximum length of 100, and you can use password managing services or software to help you keep track of all of your passwords. You also have the ability to enable or disable non-admin password recovery and two-step verification. So these are just some of the things that you're going to sort of maybe encounter in the 90-minute assessment. Now, there are other things that you can encounter, such as you might run into a question of how much storage space you would have for Google, and hopefully everybody who is using Google for Education, you know that you have unlimited storage. Unlike a personal Gmail account that I believe that the limit is maybe up to 15 gigs, 10 to 15 gigs of space, you actually have unlimited storage. So that is something that's pretty incredible. And because you're able to store videos in Google Drive, think about that. You don't have to publish them to YouTube or on the web. You just put them in Google Drive and then share them with the appropriate folks. So very neat option there. Let's see, some other things to think about in tool dexterity. Um, it's important to know how to um, you know add files to Google Drive, and also be able to diagnose problems with Google Drive. So if you come here to your Google panel, you can actually see a variety of different tools. One of them could be your reports. And as you can see here, there's just some of the highlights of apps usage. So here are some of your core Google apps, and you can see how usage is progressing, what users are nearing their storage limit. Of course, remember it's unlimited, so it's okay. How many users are taking advantage of two-step verification, um, as well as let me go back here and go to aggregate reports. So again, you can come in and you can see what's the activity like on your particular setting. There's also a way to check what if there's an outage or an app outage, and you can just again look at the dashboard and just sort of see, is it working, is it not working, what are some of the problems that you might encounter. Now, you may have noticed me talking about Google for Education. And it's important to keep in mind that Google has other products that are not necessarily education related. So when we were looking at our our different apps that are available and additional services in a different video, we were looking at some of these, and I'm sorry, go back here to core services. And I mentioned that groups for business should be turned on for everyone. If you are in a school district setting, it may be that that feature is not turned on or not enabled, and so as a result, there's some core functionality that's missing. In fact, we've had people from different different workshops and sessions where they did not have groups for business turned on, and as a result, they weren't able to access and configure their groups the way they needed to. So this is where you could actually go in and find that. But this is a groups for business feature that you want to have turned on. There are different Google services. So for example, Google Apps for Education, or Google for Education, or Google Suites for Education. Lots of different terms there, but they all mean essentially the same thing. This is really designed for K-12 or higher ed nonprofit institutions. So you want to sort of keep in mind that these particular, K-12 and higher ed are going to have some of the features that I mentioned, such as unlimited storage in Drive, also email archiving using Google Vault, the use of Google Classroom, and it's also something that's available worldwide. So that is just sort of Google for Education or Google Apps for Education. Now, for business, these are for-profit entities, and they actually have to pay a fee per user, unlike education, which does not. And there's limited storage options, as well as a charge for taking advantage of the email archiving solution that Google provides, which is Vault. And so we need to distinguish between, if we could make a chart, that distinguishes between Google Apps for Education, Google Apps for business or work, and then another offering that Google has is Google nonprofits. And this is for nonprofit organizations. There are storage limits and there is a charge for using Vault. So it gives you a little bit more. If I had to put these on a continuum, we would have Google for Education over on the far left as having access to almost everything and at no charge. And then Google nonprofits in the middle has a little less access. There might be a fee for additional services. And then on the far right would, in terms of most restrictive, and you have to pay for everything, that would be Google for business or work. So that's just a quick overview of some of the key things that you might encounter. Now there's also in the capacity matrix a mention of accessing Microsoft products via Google Apps. Sync, if you're not familiar with that, that is a feature that's available in your Google Admin Console. There's also, are there any system requirements for Google for Education? Are there system requirements for Google Docs? And people usually ask that, and they're thinking about, what do I need to have on my computer or my laptop? Essentially, if you have a browser such as a Chrome browser or Firefox or one of the popular browsers that's supported, there aren't any other requirements. That's it. It'll work just fine. And that's a great thing, because if you think about Chromebooks, there's a lot of advantages to using Chromebooks in the classroom, and one of them is that in addition to unlimited storage in Google Drive, being able to put docs and sheets and slides, insert videos that are saved in Google Drive into your Google Slides, all of those features, the Gmail, the email, being able to create groups for different grade levels of students so that you can quickly communicate with them. Same thing with staff. All of that is available to you when you're using Chromebooks in your classroom or in your teaching, learning, and leading environment. So very important to be able to sort of articulate some of the benefits of that, or at least recognize them as they appear. What's one of the neat things about Chromebooks, of course, is that you can have multiple users on that device, and their information is protected from each other. And any changes that they make while logged into one Chromebook, they log out of that machine, go into a different Chromebook, perhaps down the hall in another teacher's classroom, and they can just pick up and keep working. And the idea of being able to having to not have to push out manual updates and everything to students is also, or to Chromebooks that students are using, is also a really key concept and idea that you want to keep in mind. Another thing to know about is how to distinguish between apps, extensions, and add-ons, and also being able to, in Tool Dexterity, being able to switch between a Google Apps for Education account and your personal Google account. So different ways to accomplish that. You can have two browsers. That's a sort of inelegant solution, I guess. You can have one browser set up for your personal email, another browser set up for your work account or Google for Education account. But you can actually set it up in your Chrome settings. If you're using the Chrome browser, you can set it up so that users are able to quickly switch between the two, and it essentially sets up two Chrome profiles, one for your personal, one for your Google for Education, and then you're able to just jump back and forth, and it keeps the information, the apps, the extensions, everything separate from each other so that you don't mix them all up. Also does the same thing with the history. So those are some of the things that you might encounter as you're working your way through the capacity matrix, and I hope this quick review has sort of helped out with that.